Again. Before we do this next part though, well actually not before, we're going to jump into it now. Can I get everybody to get online into our Canvas site? And what I'd like you to do is get to session 1 and to the resources inside of session 1. And under the resources in session 1, if you come down to the bottom under support, there is a PDF in there called File Naming Convention. And if you can open that up just so that you can take a look at it, sort of have it in front of you so we can have a brief conversation about what this is. So I asked this question before and I'm going to ask it again. How many of you guys have a standardized file naming convention for all of your work? But be proud, raise your hand up high. That's good for you because it's actually a really strong, important thing to have. So here's the deal, and the reason that I bring this part up is that as time goes on, the amount of images that you have is simply going to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow, and that millions of images becomes unmanageable. If you have a standardized file naming convention, it can do a huge amount. There's a huge number of advantages for you. It can tell you a huge number of things about what it is, the file is. It can give you clues so that instead of just having a file have some sort of generic name, it has meaning. It has something that will actually mean something to you. So with that in mind, I'm going to show you my file naming convention. I've used this now for almost 15 years, and it's flawless. And it's interesting, there's all sorts of collections of organizations out there that are all about best practice, and they talk about best practice. So there's organizations that talk about the best practice for color workflow in digital photography, and there's people who, the people who talk about best practice for file naming convention, their file naming convention is not, it's almost indistinguishable from mine. They're that close. So I want to talk to you about this. You do not have to use mine, but you have to use something. Okay, and the one thing that I will say to you, the worst thing that you can do, and the reason I'm bringing this up now, the worst thing that you can do is to establish a file naming convention for yourself right now and then change it in 2 years. Because by doing that, you nullify a huge amount of the value that it will have. I feel like I'm on stage. It'll invalidate a huge benefit that you will actually have if you use one consistently. Does that sort of make sense? So I'm going to show you mine. I'm going to have a quick conversation about why it is what it is and sort of the way it functions. So this is it in a nutshell right up here at the very top. You'll notice that all of the letters for this are all in lowercase. So and all of you guys are working on Macintosh computers, and Macintosh computers are shockingly friendly when it comes to how you can name anything. So you can have spaces, you can have uppercase, lowercase, you can have what are called illegal characters in your names. The problem that you run into, though, is that if you ever have to send your files up to some server, that server can reject a lot of things. So when would you ever send files to a server? How many of you guys have your own website? So how many of you guys have ever struggled with putting it in? Are you allowed to edit your own website? Can you change images on your website? Can you do that kind of stuff? Does it specify how you have to name your files in order to do that? It pretty much lets you do that. Well then, are you doing it with like Squarespace or somebody like that? Yeah, so then what's happening is that when your files are going up, they're putting them through some sort of system that renames your files to make them legal for their servers. Because all the servers, for the most part, all the servers in the world are pretty much based on Unix code, and it expects stuff to be in Unix. And what Unix does not allow is that there's a huge number of things it doesn't allow. So it does not allow capitalization. It does not allow any blank spaces. It doesn't allow any forward slashes, backslashes. It allows no question marks. There's a huge range of things that you cannot use in your name. This naming convention avoids all of those things. There's another thing about a Unix server that, again, is pretty much locked in stone. It has got a limit of 32 characters, and if you go beyond that limit, it will reject your file. First, sir, how on earth would you know that? And you're sounding like this is an awfully personal thing to you, like possibly you're a little angry about all this. I had a client, I was shooting for, I don't remember their name, some weird client in New York, and we had spent all day shooting. It was a Friday, it was our first day, which was another weird thing, but nonetheless. And my assistant was supposed to upload the 5,000 files that we had made that day to the Unix server so that the art director could look at it overnight. And he had put a space in the actual folder content of what he had actually uploaded. So he clicks upload, we leave for Friday, they're supposed to be editing all weekend, and we come in Monday morning and I get fired. It doesn't take shit like that to happen. Stuff like that doesn't happen more than once for me before I'm like, okay. And the reason I was fired was that one space that was sitting in the name of the folder that held all the files was rejected by the server, and then people couldn't see anything. And their anger just built. They got angry on Saturday, and they got more pissed off on Sunday, and by Monday morning it was, the fuck out of here. I don't care what your pictures look like. And I was just like, what? Anyway. So this is what it is in a nutshell. It starts out with a year. Now, I think you're all going to live a long, happy life. So the truth of the matter is, there's a good chance that every single file, because it all starts with the year, and it's all four numbers of the year, every one of yours is going to start with a 20. And so initially when I did this, I was like, you know, I'm never going to ever go. I'm not going to live to the 22nd century. I'm not going to make it another, what, this is 2019? Are you guys going to live another 81 years? Do you think beyond that? Probably, hopefully, maybe some of you could make that. But anyway, you get where I'm going with this, right? But the problem with eliminating that 20, those first two digits in the year, is that that leaves a digit that could indeed be interpreted as the day. So for instance, this is 2019. If I get rid of the 20 and I don't have that, then my code starts with 19. Is that the year or is that the day? Make sense? So anyway, go ahead and leave the 20 in. It also immediately will flag your file for what it is. People will understand that. They see the first four characters as 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, whatever. There's no question about what your file naming is. Second two characters are the month, and the last two characters are the day. And the reason we do it this way is that that will put every single thing, not just your files in chronological order, but your shooting in chronological order. So I have got on a server at home, I've got a 5 terabyte server at home that's got probably 500-600 shootings on it, and they all sit in perfect chronological order because I've never changed this file naming system. The other advantage is that you always know that the shooting you're working on is always the one at the bottom of the list. It's always the latest one that you're doing, unless for somehow you can travel to the future and shoot pictures then and come back. And if you can, I want to see that. Make sense? Then I do an underscore because it starts getting pretty long. And then I have what's called CCC. CCC is a code for me. It's a client code. Now again, I shoot fashion and beauty. I'm a commercial guy, whatever. You don't need to use your client code as your client code as a client code. You can use it to mean something else. So for me, client code means this. If I'm shooting for myself, it's VER. And I know immediately when I look at it, oh, that's something you did for yourself. That was a test that you did for your portfolio. That was something you did like that. If I'm shooting for Lord & Taylor, it's LOR. If I'm shooting for Neiman Marcus, it's NIE. If I'm shooting for General Motors, it's GEM. If I'm shooting for Saks, it's SAK. I know immediately looking at that code who it is. So even if I can't remember that I was doing a shooting for Neiman's last fall, really quickly I can look at the year and I can narrow it down to the fall range, and then somewhere in there is going to be the Neiman code for me. If I've done 2 shootings for them, that'll be 2, but at least I've narrowed this down and I'm not looking through thousands. It's just like so fast and quick, right? Another underscore. And then this one's the key here, no pun intended. Keywords. 1 Keywords. It's 8 characters. You can use less for your keyword, but you cannot use more. If you go over, if you use more, then you violate the 32 character limit on a Unix server. So up to 8, but no more. But you don't have to use 8. So for me, what's a keyword? It's the most obvious thing about what I shoot. So when I'm shooting for Neiman Marcus, If it's women's fashion, I'll put in WFash. If it's beauty, I simply put in beauty. If it's kids, I'll put in kids. It's just something that helps me delineate, oh, yes, that was the kids shooting that I did for Neiman Marcus last fall. And I've gotten all of this information. I can open the first file. Does that make sense? So again, for you guys, if it's your own artwork, your character, your client code would be you. And then the keyword would be whatever the art project was. Could be the subject matter of the art project. Could be whatever it is. Does that sort of make sense where we're going here? Underscore again, the underscore that happens now, that 2-digit code that sits right there is a way for me to break up my day in terms of shots. So I'm a fashion shooter. I go into a situation, a typical day for me is to shoot somewhere between 15 and 20 outfits in a given day. If I'm really lucky, it's an ad client, it's much less. It'll be 8 or 9 that I'll end up shooting. Does that make sense? But it's a completely different outfit. So whatever the Dior gown is, that's going to be one shot. And then when we go to the Versace gown, that's going to be another shot. Does that sort of make sense where we're going with here? So that's a way for me to break those up and to keep those separate. So I've had people say to me, well, I don't shoot that way. I'm a wedding shooter. I shoot weddings. And I always say to them, you could still look at a wedding day and break that up so that you don't have just this giant thing in front of you. So for instance, you could have your shot 1 could be the bride getting dressed with all her friends drinking mimosas in the morning. And then your shot 2 could be when everybody arrives at the church. And then your shot 3 is the wedding itself. And shot 4 is the rehearsal, is the party afterward. And shot 5 are the honeymoon pictures. And you can still break your day up to make that part more manageable to you. Because if you've got your day broken up like that, then you can say, oh yeah, the wedding is 03, so I just need to look through 03. I need to find the money shot for whatever. Does this make sense? Another underscore, and then there is a 3-digit, it's the 3 number characters right there. That's your frame count. Now that is not something I actually ever put into a code. That is something that is supplied by the software. And you guys know, if you've ever shot, your camera supplies it if you're shooting to your camera. We're going to shoot tethered into Capture One. Capture One will actually supply that frame counting number for you. Does that make sense? So it's frame 001, frame 002, frame 003. It's the actual shot count itself. Does that make sense? And then finally, there's a dot with a 3-digit extension on the end of it. And the advantage of that is that that lets me know what the file is. So in the case of Canon shooters, how many of you guys are Canon shooters? So your extension is CR2. How many are Nikon shooters? So your extension is NEF. How many are Sony shooters? ARC? Is that what it is?
No, it's WAR.
I think it's,
Something weird.
yeah.
Something weird.
Something, anyway, whatever your Sony is, whatever. That's what that is. But the advantage of this is that then when you take this file and you turn it into a Photoshop file, what is it?
ARW.
ARW. When you then process this file into a Photoshop file, the only thing that changes is that 3-digit code. It becomes a PSD. And so, therefore, your raw file and your process file are always connected because the name never changed. If you do a JPEG version of it, it's .jpg. Does this make sense, everybody? So everything stays connected. The names never ever change. When you go to build a profile for this shooting, this is exactly what we did when you use the naming convention My Profile. The profile has the same name as the shooting. Are we good on this part? So that's the way I'm hoping you guys go. So again, if you want to change this, that's fine, but I'm just telling you right now, changing it now and then changing it again in 2 or 3 years, whatever, you will hate your life. Because then you will never be able to search just one giant body. You will be searching the group before and the group after. And then you change it again. Then you'll be doing before, and then after. It's just, anyway, you see where this can go horribly wrong. So it's just a discipline. It's what I'm going to ask you guys to do. So at any rate, that's all I've got for that. So did everybody download Capture One? Did everybody get a working version of Capture One? Some of you guys have got older versions of system software and you can't use. Version 12 is the current version of Capture One. I am on 11 right now, but everything that we're going to do in this class is going to be close enough, so you don't need to worry about that. What I would like to do is this, and this is ambitious, but I think we can have time to do this. What I would like to do is actually launch Capture One, get through a little bit of the preamble part here, And then I want to go to the lobby area that's right out here, that's got all that beautiful sunshine coming in there. We're going to grab cameras and we're going to connect cameras to your computer to do that final connection part between Capture One and your camera, that whole connected part. Does that sort of make sense? We're also going to go over perfect color and perfect exposure again. I just want to make sure everybody's good on that part. So it's going to be easier to show this to you really quickly, so I'm going to simply show it to you right now. When you are using your color card, when we're out there actually doing it, and we're going to sort of split up. I want everybody to do this on their own, because I want you to have the experience of actually doing that, but they've only got like 5 or 6 of these here, so we're just going to have to blur and share, is what I'm basically saying. But I don't want to really put you into teams where you've got one person working on a card and another person working on the computer, because I want everybody to have this hands-on experience. So share and help everybody else, help each other out so that we don't just spend hour after hour out there, whatever. But again, I want everybody to actually go through this process on their own. Make sense? Okay, so the one thing that I did want to show you about this is another version of this very same card. This is actually an older version of that color card. But you remember when I said to you, I was asking you about holding this card and the right way you could actually hold this card or whatever. You can see the reason I've got this one right here. This is a problem on this card. If you take a look, and you'll always spot it in the edges. Don't try to spot it in the card itself. You want to look at it for the edges. But can you see how much glare is on the edges of that card? And the reason that's happening is that this is actually been angled in such a way that you are getting a direct reflection off of that. Who in this room has no idea what a direct reflection is? Everybody good on that part? Lighting 101? Imagine that this is a mirror. If I were to hold this in such a way that you could actually see the projector, you would be getting hit with a direct reflection. Now, if you guys right there are getting hit with it, you guys over here are not getting hit with it because you guys are at a completely different angle. Everybody good on that part? So if you spot this, the one thing you've got to do is you've got to then twist the card in such a way that you get rid of it, and that's what this version is. So that's what happens when it's not. I'm going to show both of these to you at the same time, and you can see the difference. Glare, no glare. It's the one thing you've got to look out for all the time, because if you've got glare on a card, it's going to give you a false reading. Are we good on that? Okay, so when you guys open up, go ahead and launch Capture One. Do you have anything? What happens when you launch it? It comes up, and what does it say? It says if you can learn more, getting started, interface walkthrough, tutorials, basically. I just want to start the fucker. Thanks. Just click somewhere else. If it asks you to open a session or not, you can just say cancel, but everybody pretty much has got this guy open, right? Okay, this is the software, I'm telling you this right now, this is the software that every single professional studio all over the world uses, period. Nobody uses anything else. Nobody shoots to Lightroom. If you go into the studio and somebody's shooting to Lightroom, get your money and get out. It's just that simple, you're working with a loser. Just that simple, there's no exception to that. I swear in a professional environment. If you can actually make this program, if you can learn this program front to back, back to front, really make this thing a command thing, you can work in any major city in the world for the rest of your life. You may not make a fortune, but you can have a job. So, at any rate, that's how important this guy is. So for us to start, the first thing that I would like you to do is actually simplify things in your life a little bit. To do that, come up to the window menu, come down to Workspace, and come down to Simplified Tethered Capture. And what that will do is it will realign your screen. It'll put thumbnails over here on the right side. It will give you the biggest viewer in the middle. It will put your tool palettes over here on the left-hand side. You'll see I've got a whole bunch of these tool palettes up here. It gets rid of ones that we wouldn't need. So for instance, this class, there's absolutely no way I can get into color correction and Capture One in this class. It's just there's not enough time. It's just too ambitious. So why have those tools available to us to only confuse the situation, right? So what I'm really more concerned about with you guys is actually learning how to do a capture in that whole process. And then continue to process your files in either Lightroom or in Photoshop or however you prefer to process your files. Is everybody good on that part? That's not to say that Capture One doesn't have an incredibly robust processing environment. It does, but it would be a class in and of itself. All right, are we good on this part? Okay. So I'm just going to do, again, the simplified tethered capture here, get rid of a whole lot over here. Then up here at the very top, these are called tool tabs along the top here. The only two that we're really going to spend a lot of time with is, well, that's not true. So I'm going to ask you to click on the first one, the one that looks like a little file. In Capture One, you have two options. You have catalogs, which are just like Lightroom. How many of you guys are working in Lightroom? Do all of you guys work in Lightroom? So what do the rest of you guys do? You just shoot to, wait, how do the rest of you work? Okay, so to bridge. So you would basically shoot to a card, is that correct? And then put the card into a card reader, and then copy that folder over to your hard drive or to your computer, and then just browse that via bridge, right? That's a perfectly viable way of going about doing it. I have no issue with that whole part at all. So, but then the rest of you guys are more Lightroom-oriented sort of people. So you do basically the same process, but then you simply go a step further and you import it into Lightroom so that you can actually search and do that. Is that correct? Basically. Is anybody doing anything else? What?
They sort and photo mechanic.
Okay. Wow, that's old school. No, but it's actually one of the best sorters there ever was. But I haven't heard anybody use. So no, that's a good thing. I know that's not. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. As a matter of fact, it's faster than pretty much anything. So anyway, I didn't know it was even still around. Okay. So at any rate, so Capture One has two options. You can actually do a catalog, which is the very same thing as Lightroom. So you can actually shoot. It's one giant catalog, and every single file that you ever shoot goes into it. It's just this monster collective. And the only way that you can actually navigate through there is by using all of its database tools, its search tools. So you can search by keywords, you can search by dates, you can do all of that kind of stuff. Exactly the way Lightroom functions. That's not how most of us actually work in Capture One. Most of us work in Capture One in what they call sessions. And what a session would be is a shooting that you're going to do. So if I'm hired to shoot, let's say I'm hired to shoot Lord & Taylor for a week's worth of fashion. Depending on how it goes, I may set up a session for every single day, or I may set up one session just for the week. But then if I go to work for Saks Avenue the week after that, whatever, that would definitely be a different session. I would break those two apart. Because the people at Saks are not interested in the Lord & Taylor film, the people at Lord & Taylor are not interested in Saks film, so I keep those two things separate. Does that sort of make sense? So that's the process that I'm going to show you guys. I'm not going to show you the big catalog part, whatever. I'm going to show you the more session-oriented part. Now, it's not to say that you can't use all of them in the same way, but what sessions do is they're actually going to build folders for you that remain somewhat separate, that then you can treat within Bridge, or if you're a Lightroom person, you can actually just import stuff into Lightroom, and you're good to go either way. Make sense? Okay, so to do that, to start this, there's one of two places that you can do it. You can either come up to the File menu, and you can come down and do New Session. Again, not Catalog, Session, or you can come to this little plus right here and click this little drop down, and you will either get New Session or a New Catalog. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. You already know how I feel about user interface design. Why the fuck does Phase 1 have this little drop-down menu with New Session on top and New Catalog on the bottom, but in the File menu, it's exactly the opposite? Somebody should be spanked really hard for that. Sorry. But it's just, how stupid can you fucking be? Sorry. At any rate, I typically use this little guy right here, click on this drop down and do New Session, and a window will actually open up for you, and you now need to name that new session. So we are going to humor me at least for today, use my naming convention, but do it for yourself. So the naming convention that I'm going to use is 201907, this is the 7, yeah, okay, yeah, 10 underscore. I am going to do this for myself, so I'm going to put in my initials. You should put in your initials. I'm going to do VER again, all lowercase. That was not an underscore. You can use hyphens instead of underscores if you want. They're also legal. but again, whatever you do should be consistent. Then again, I'm going to do an underscore. And this is my time for keywords. And I can use a keyword for here. Again, my character limit is 8 characters here. So I'm going to do C1PDEMO. C1PDEMO. I got enough character limit. I'm fine as far as that part goes. So this part's going to work out well for me as far as we go right here. Now, I don't really have a shot count because we're only going to do 1 shot today, but I'm going to go ahead and put that into my naming convention just so that you guys get that experience. Again, if you're only going to do 1 shooting in a given day or for a session, you don't really need this shot number, but I'm going to go ahead and put it in because it's on the naming convention thing we looked at. Are you guys okay with that? All right, so again, underscore 01. Where do you put this? The worst place in the world you can put this is on your desktop. The problem with putting anything on your desktop is that your desktop is an active database, and every single change that happens to your desktop forces the desktop to completely re-index itself. So if we start shooting tethered to our desktop, you are going to put file after file after file on your desktop. Every single time a file goes onto the desktop, the entire database of your desktop has to be rewritten. It will drag your computer to a crawl. You'll get really frustrated. If you're working for an art director, they'll get even more frustrated. And they're nasty people. I always tell everybody what I do for a living is I take a 3-dimensional object, I turn it into a 2-dimensional object for a 1-dimensional person. So where do you want to put this? I'm going to actually put this in my pictures folder. It's actually the best place to put this is in your picture folder. So that's where I'm actually going to put mine, not into this storage solution thing. So if you want to click on this little triangle guy right here, it'll open it up. Simply pick your picture folder. It's a great place to put it. And I'm going to go ahead and choose that. We're not going to work with templates right here. We are not going to change any of these namings right here, this capture, selects, output, any of that kind of stuff. It will copy the name of what we put up here in the top and use that as your capture name. And then you have an option of doing a new window down here. And that is something that is a bad habit to get into. The reason I say people shouldn't do new habits is that Capture One is capable of running different, multiple sessions simultaneously, but your camera can only connect to one of them. So if your camera is connected to a session that you don't know is open, you will never be able to connect it to the one you want it to be connected to. So doing multiple windows here is not a good idea. So I don't do this part right here, and then I merely say OK. It builds it, and you should have a blank screen right now that looks something like my guy right here. Everybody good on that part? Okay, so to see what we just built, I want everybody to come over here to the capture folder window, to the listing right over here, and I want you to hold down the control key, however you do a 2-button mouse. So it's the right button mouse is the one I want you to get to. I'm going to hold down my control key and click on a drop-down menu, and you will get this drop-down menu and can say, can you show this to me in the Finder? I want you to see what it is we just built. And it'll take you out to the Finder, and you can actually see what it is we just created. And so what we created was this. There is a folder that is named with what we just built it as. Inside that folder is a folder at the top that is a preference file for the entire session. That controls everything about the session. It remembers the name. It remembers everything. It's going to remember any tagging, keywording, anything that you do, all of that. It remembers the layout of Capture One for you. That's all sitting up in here. Inside the Capture folder is where all your captures are going to go. If you do processing in Capture One, it will go to your output folder. If you actually do a select in Capture One, which is beyond what we'll get to in this class, but don't worry about it, it will go here. And then finally, the trash, which sits right here. You should know this about Capture One. Capture One has a two trash process. A throwaway process is the double thing. If you throw away a file in Capture One, it actually goes into this folder, and it stays there forever. The only way to get rid of it is to go into this folder and actually throw it away as a second time. So it's a protection thing. And that makes sense, right? Is everybody good on that? So you would think that I would have assistants that would know that, because most of them have been digital techs. Again, they've been working with me. They should have known that long enough. So You would think that the night that they decided to stay after the shooting at the studio and get really drunk in the bedroom lingerie scene, and then decide to do all sorts of like really skanky pictures in the bedroom thing, just like laughing and joking around and taking pictures of it all, but throwing it all away, and then not realizing that they didn't throw it away the second time. So the first time the next day, go through looking for a color card that's from the day before, I get their entire escapade on film, and I'm like, wow. At any rate, yeah. Consider yourself warned. Are there questions about any of this? Are we good on this? Okay, so we're going to lock the room, so if you want to leave something here, leave something here. What I need you to do is bring your computer. Jenny and I, we're going to go, like, again, that big lobby area right there. We are going to grab cameras and bring them in. I want to go through the process of getting a camera hooked up here, and hopefully a quick exposure thing. If we can get through that part before lunch, that would be killer. If not, that's where we'll start. And then we will be into Photoshop for the rest of our day today in this room. Are we good on this? Are there any questions about this so far? Do you care? You will. Stay with me, guys. All right. Yes.
You changed the color space or
Yes, I do.
RGB?
Take that one. Yes, that's an interesting thing. So, interesting point. So Jenny's just saying, so the color space on this camera just got changed. Somebody had it set, I guess, at Adobe RGB and it changed it to sRGB. Does that matter? I've got a yes, that matters. I've got a Jenny believes it matters. Obviously, she wouldn't have brought it up. Other people, does it matter? Why? Oh, see, I scare the shit out of everybody. It's going to get to the point by Friday, nobody is going to answer
Like
me on anything.
sRGB?
Yes.
Less colors? I don't know, less tones?
Here's the deal. All the settings in this camera, all of those settings, so the sRGB setting, the picture mode, all of those mode, whatever, are only for JPEGs that camera processes. A RAW file does not essentially have a color space.
Right.
It has the color space of your camera. So regardless of what that is set to, if you're shooting RAW, it makes absolutely no difference at all. It won't change your RAW file at all. If you're shooting JPEG, it makes a huge difference because that's what gets burned into your JPEG. So if you are shooting JPEG for some, is there any reason to shoot JPEG?
Webs or proofs?
There was a guy, he was a photojournalist for the New York Times who was shooting pictures of the Olympics when they were in Russia, like Winter Olympics in Russia, I don't know how many years ago. And he, really famous photographer, and he was sitting in the stands when Apollo Ono was speed skating.
he had a really long lens on whatever, and he was shooting really, really, really small JPEGs. He had a satellite telephone hookup, and he had set up his computer automatically so that every frame that he shot went over the satellite hookup up and landed in the office of the New York Times 6-7 minutes after he shot the picture. They couldn't use a resolution any bigger than what he was sending them. I was going to go in the newspaper, and newspaper's shitty anyway, so whatever. But they had live imagery from the Olympics sitting in their office, processed 6 minutes after he had hit the shutter button. That's why you shoot JPEG. There are reasons. If you needed to shoot 1,000 frames in a second, you would shoot JPEGs. RAWs are too big. Really baby JPEGs are not. So at any rate. Okay, so grab your cable. Any cable. So has everybody got a cable in this? Here, do you need one? Take that guy. Has everybody else got one? Okay, so yeah. Here, I'm going to give you this one. I'll use the short one. Everybody else good? Jenny, you want one? Okay. Okay. So obviously the USB in goes into the USB part of your computer. Oh, how short could this guy be? And then the other end of it goes into, if you look on the left side of your camera and open up, there's two sets of rubber covers on here. Open up the one that's closest to the back of your camera, and you'll actually see in the very middle, there's 3 little connections here. The one that we're actually looking for is the one that's in the center, and you need to plug that guy in. I knew I would forget my water. And in most of your cases, you're going to get a screen that pops up and says, do you want to register your camera system devices? Did everybody get that?
No.
It's okay if you didn't get it. So this becomes one of the problems with what we are actually doing is this shooting tethered, this connection thing is rife with possible screw-ups. And so we're going to just see how bad things get. I'm not sure about the USB connector guys. I'm not sure if we're going to find out. If you did get this little message that says, do you want to register this stuff? You can say, sure, you don't need to register it. It doesn't make any difference. It's not going to impact your camera at all. But everybody's at least got their computer connected, and are you back into Capture One? If you can get back to Capture One, that part would be great. Okay, so then if you're looking in Capture One, remember the little icon that we used at the very top on the left-hand side that looks like the file? That's where we built our session. Right to the right of that should be an icon that looks like a camera. I want you to click on that. And you should have a screen that opens up, and at the very top it should say something like exposure evaluation, next capture naming, next blah, 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 blah. Anywhere down that line does it say camera?
Yeah.
You will notice that there are little triangles right next to those camera things that will allow that to open and to close. You just need to open it up to make sure that you can see your camera. So who can see their camera? You should get a readout in there. Everybody? No, okay. It never is everybody, ever. It's good. It's good. It says no connected. Sure, it's turned on. It's like the ultimate.
Version of the setup. So mostly for composition.
Oh yeah.
No, turn your camera off now, and then back on. There's the cable is usually the biggest suspect in this. So yeah, what would cause this? Cables are what causes this usually. So if you can't connect, that's usually something that would be a suspicion. You gotta be very close to your computer. You have a USB port on the other side, right? Try it. So troubleshooting 101. I know this camera connects to mine. And it connects here, so I know that this cable and this camera are okay. Which is not good news for your laptop. Oh, it was there. You're connected. Okay, everybody else is good though, right? Okay. Okay, so you'll notice in that little drop down, you can actually control things from your camera. So the first thing I want you to change, if you click on where it says ISO on the bottom part, you can actually click on that. You'll get a drop down menu, and let's just change this to a 100 ISO. Did that work for everyone? And if you look at the top of your camera, you'll notice it's actually changed it to 100 ISO, which is terrific. And then you can change your shutter speeds here as well. You can still do all of this on your camera. It's just the easier thing to get to. Some of the more hidden menus, it just makes it a little bit easier. So now what I want everybody to do is I want them to, again, they should have given us, did you guys get any cards at all? They should have given us, so again, we're going to have to share these cards around. So I'm going to show you, I need everybody to crowd around here. And I'm going to show you what I want you to do, and then I'm going to let everybody, we'll just grab cards, and we're going to spend the rest of our time simply doing this. And we've got a half hour to get through all of this. Again, this shouldn't take us this long to do. So can you guys see this? So crowd in, crowd in. I don't bite. Well, actually I do, but that's another story. Oh, that was a joke. Okay, what's our exposure in here? Guess. Okay.
You could try ISO 600, 1/25th of a second.
Oh my God. ISO
Maybe
600? Who does that?
5.6. I don't know.
5.6. So you just say to bump it up. Well, I'm going to leave it at 100 here, and I'm simply going to guess on this. I'm going to go with a 60th of a second at 4. We'll see. So I'm going to click on a 60th of a second. I'm going to change this to f4. Typically, I would do this with a meter. I'm a big believer in handheld meters. I would have a meter here, but I don't have this guy right here. So anyway, but I'm going to click on this guy, and let's just see what happens. And I get this color card that has now come up. And that's how fast tethered shooting actually is. It's incredibly quick, and I get amazing feedback right now. So here's the feedback, and this is what I want everybody to do before we actually break for lunch, okay? To judge your exposure, the first thing that you need to do is come up here to the white balance tool. It's this little eyedropper that sits right here. Can you all see that part? We good? Click on the little eyedropper. This will then set the white balance. This works just like it does in Camera Raw. Come over, and the patch you want to color neutralize is this one right here. All of these patches are meant to be color neutral. The problem in neutralizing stuff that starts to get more to our high end becomes a problem because the correction, sometimes you don't have enough space in your curve to actually do a correction to eliminate the tint, whereas down here in the more midtones you do. The reason you avoid the shadows is that you don't pick up color casting in shadows. You mostly pick it up in the highlights. So I typically always go after this guy right here. It's the one that's right across from the red, and click on that. This has now been color neutralized, and then hover over the white patch and look up at here at the top. You will see that you get an RGB readout plus a luminosity readout. And in my case, this is my RGB readouts are 219, 217, 215, whatever, but I'm also getting a 217 in the luminosity. That is the brightness of my image. Now, we had this conversation yesterday. Where do I want that white patch to be for perfect exposure? 245 to 250. 255 is blown out white. It's page white, and that's not what that is. That's real. So I'm going to open this up by, let's take it open a third of a step. If I go to a 30th, that'll be a full stop. I'm going to go to a 20th, a stop and 2/3. The color balance will continue in on that. I'm going to read this patch right now. It's giving me a 253. What is that telling me? I'm overexposed. So I'm going to go back down a third. $250. I'm going to go 249 in my luminosity right there. Perfect color and perfect exposure. That's what I need you to do. Have at it. Here's a card for anybody. That's mine, by the way. The one with the V. Go for it. Wait, are there questions about this? Did that all make sense? Are we good about this? Again, look for the glare. Get the patch reading right. I'm gonna, if anybody wants to set up right here, I'm gonna get out of your hair because I don't need this. Wow. Art. Not just any art, fine art. Right? So, but let me ask you this. Think about it. How many people in this room talked to me when we were talking before, what do you shoot? And I heard still lifes. There's a ton of people who do still lifes. Why on earth would you do this?
changes everything, right? Then you don't think about any of those things. You just shoot, right? Fashion people, same thing. If you're in the studio, it's just stupidly easy to do, and it's just then you don't deal with it. So this comes up all the time. Professor, what if I want my image to look really, dark and moody? Well, can you make this really dark and moody? Of course you can, right? How many people in here shoot dark and moody? Right, and when you shoot dark and moody, is that the way you shoot it? Yeah, you shoot it. You underexpose it a lot, you make it really dark and moody, right? There's a problem with that, and the problem with that is that what you're really doing is, do you have a lot of noise in your images? Oh yeah, horrible noise, right? The issue about what we are doing here, and the thing that you guys need to think about in your mind now, is that what we are doing here is not making an exposure. What we are doing here is collecting data to make an image. This is never meant to be the end-all of what your image should look like. What this is designed to do is to give you the most amount of data that you can have so that then you can process your image to be the way you want it to look. So if you start with this completely, this is as rich a data set as you can get. If you start with that and then push all of those tones down, you have no noise, because the noise is a consequence of not having information. When you're underexposing, you are not grabbing the information that you need to build the file. This way you are, and at the end of the day, you end up with a really dark and moody image, but it has no noise in it because you started from a rich data set. Does that make sense to everyone? Are there any questions about that?
So, for example, if you still have two different colored light sources, this won't necessarily help with that difficulty per se, right?
It will not. So what this does, and the thing that you need to know about a raw file, so remember we talked about a raw file, you don't need to set sRGB or Adobe RGB in your camera because it's a raw file. Raw files do not understand what their color is. You have to tell it. The profiles that we made 2 days ago do just that. It says this is the way we should interpret your color because the raw file itself doesn't know what color it's supposed to be. We're going to actually look at a file when you guys come back that was actually also shot on green screen, and when it comes into camera raw, you'll see because there's such a dominance of green in the image, it gets really confused about what it thinks the image should be, and there's really no way to color correct it except for the fact that I have a frame that's got a color card in it. But so if you are shooting in two different colors of light, so the classic is you're shooting a picture inside a room that's got inside a room like this, that's got a window to the outside. And the room has got incandescent lights on the inside, which are 2800 degrees Kelvin, and the outside is 6500 degrees Kelvin, and there's that mismatch. You can color balance for the room, or you can color balance for the outside, but you can't color balance for both. So then your only solution to that, there's a number of them. If you're like in the old film days, we used to hang sheets of gel over the window to make them the same color temperature as the incandescent lights on the inside. Ask me how much fun that is, right? How tall are these windows? How much gel do we need? The other option is to do it in post. You outline the window and you reset the color temperature in post for just the window. You do your normal color temperature for the room and you're good to go. But what you're doing in capturing that situation is you're building in two different color light sources and you've got to pick one. Make sense? Other questions about this? So then people say to me, okay, well, Verser, do you really do this on location as a fashion photographer? So you guys remember the old days of photography. We've all seen pictures of this. And the guys with those big old accordion cameras, right? And the dark cloth thrown over the top of them and, shooting wet plate, and they've got a cart that they're pulling behind them that's their portable darkroom. You've seen all that, right? Well, it's not too different the way we shoot outside, although we don't have the big cart. But what we do have is I'll actually bring it next time we get together if I can remember to do it. It looks like a briefcase. And it opens up, and this thing sits inside that briefcase, and there's a dark cloth that goes over my digital text head, and he sits under that thing the entire time.
yelling out numbers to me and telling me, oh, it's this, or it's that, or oh, no, you need to check your focus, or all that kind of stuff. I do not leave a photo shoot without knowing that I've gotten it. So let me ask you this really quickly. If you guys were, so a typical photo shoot day for me with a crew is usually runs about $30,000 to $40,000. That's what to get a crew out on location actually costs to do. Between the hair, makeup, talent, models, the RV, the truck, the whole 9 yards, the art directors, the whole crew, everything, what that's about. Who in this room wants to gamble that money? Nobody. So I can promise you, everybody shoots tethered. Everybody. So does that mean you can only shoot tethered? No. Does that mean you have to have capture one? No. You can actually shoot to a card, which is the other thing that we'll do. We will actually shoot to a card, targets just like this. We will import those into Photoshop. We will actually do readings inside of Photoshop to make sure that we've actually got this thing correct, that we've got our exposure correct, and our color is a reference to have our color be neutralized, whatever. And then we'll just continue to shoot the card. And as long as your light is not fundamentally changing, you're going to be good to go. You'll be fine to go. And then we keep loading in cards and reviewing stuff, because I would never walk away from a shooting thinking, oh, well, I haven't looked at any images, but I know I've got this baby. Make sense? Are we good on this part? Okay, I want to show you one last thing here really quickly, but Jane brought up a good point, and I want to actually have this conversation with you guys really quickly. So, in an available light situation like what we just did, there's 3 things that control your exposure. What are they? Shutter speed, ISO, and aperture. Those 3 things. Everybody in this room comfortable with that? We all know that instinctively. Now, there are relationships between all of those. I don't know that I really want to get into those woods right now, but are you guys, how do you feel about what they call reciprocity? So for instance, do you know this? Guys, we're going to, I swear, give me 5 minutes. We're going to get out of here on time, I promise. As far as the timing goes for all of my classes, I should just tell you this right now. I'm going to get through a millionth of what I could feel like I should be getting into your all's brains. And so I'm going to take every fucking minute I possibly can to try to jam something else in there. So, I've got an ISO here, I've got a shutter speed here, and I've got an aperture right here. My ISO is 100, my shutter speed is 125th of a second, and I'm at f8. And that gives me a neutral exposure. I'm going to call this perfect exposure. It's great. It's perfect, right? Can I change any of these values and reset other values to give me different effects, right? So if I, for instance, said, well, I'm taking a picture of a waterfall, and I don't want to freeze the water. I really want it to seem like it's moving. I really want to, I want that total sense of motion. I want that blur in the water, because all the trees and the rocks will be fine. I'm on a tripod, all the trees and the rocks will be fine, whatever. What do I do to my shutter speed to get that to happen? Make it slower. So pick one. What speed would you try? A half a second. The first person who speaks up wins. Okay, so I'm going to do a half a second here. Can I do that? What do I need to change then to actually make all this happen? I need the same exposure, right? I can change my aperture, and what do I change it to? Nobody knows. Everybody like, oh, I'll just look at my camera and reset the exposure, man. Nobody knows, right?
Well, isn't it just the number of stops away that...
It is the number of stops, and this is exactly what reciprocity is. The number of stops need to balance one at each other out. So what is an f-stop? In terms of light?
It's like how wide open the...
It is. It's how wide I'm going to close down the aperture is. But if I change my aperture, if I go from f8 to 5.6, am I letting in more light or less light? More light. How much more?
What, the third stop?
A doubling, one full stop.
So 6.
8 to 5.6
Oh,
is one full stop. I've doubled my light. If I go down to f11, is it more light or less light? Less light. How much less? It's my light is cut in half. You're exactly right. So the number of stops from 125th to 1/2 of a second are how many stops? Count it out. Don't try to do this in your head any other way. If I go from 125th to a 60th, that's one more stop. More light. A 30th, a 15th, an 8th, a quarter, and a half.
I've added 6 stops worth of light. Does that make sense? Okay, so this is now a +6 right here. I'm just going to put it down right here. I've got to change something in here to get rid of that. I'm going to first go after my aperture and try and get that down. Do I need more light or less light on my aperture? I need less light. I need how many stops less light? 6. So how much, if we're going to go down from 6, I'm going to start heading to 11. I'm heading in that direction, right? Less light, right? So 8, 2, count out with me guys. What's one stop down? Next stop. Next. God, I fucking love you people. No, I do this all the time and nobody knows this shit. And you guys all know this. Somebody taught you something somewhere along the line. I'm going to start crying. Okay, wait. All right, so wait, we were at 8, okay, so 8, I'm going to 11, to 16, to 22, 32. I'm not really going to expect you to know a whole lot more, but if you do, go for it. 45. 64 is going to be my 6 stops. So at a half a second, I need to be at F64, and I can still be at 100 ISO. I can't get to F64, whatever. That simply won't work for me. I can't get there. I can't get that far down. Whatever. My camera stops at like let's say 32. So, or let's say 22, because that's what most of your all stops at. So I'm going to get down to F22. How much did that actually knock off for me? So again, 8 stops to 8 to 11 is 1, 16 to 22, so 3 stops. So I need to lose 3 more stops of sensitivity somehow. What else is my option? ISO. So I need to knock this down. So if I'm at F22 right there, this can't be 100. What ISO do I need? 50 will be 1 stop. I need more than that. Right? So it's still doubling and halving, doubling and halving, doubling and halving. So F22, I need 3 more stops. 1 of them would be 50. 2 of them would be 25, 3 of them would be 12 and a half. So an ISO of 12 and a half, or let's just call it 12, an ISO of 12 at a half a second at F22 will give me the exact same exposure, but I will have motion in my water. Make sense? Are we good on this part? Okay, and the final thing, so when we talk about shutter speed, it controls what? Motion. We talk about apertures, that controls what? Depth of field. If we talk about ISO, what does that control? Noise. So, do you always start at an ISO of 600? What's the fastest you guys shoot ISO-wise? And then we'll break this. Any of you? Oh, you guys are fearless. I know it. Somebody in this room has shot at F64,000. I know they have. Without exception. 800. Actually, for me, my sort of like cutoff point is right around 1200. Things start getting awfully noisy at about that point, but I can hit it with enough software and close to probably make it okay. At 2400 ISO, that kind of stuff, I start getting really nervous. 600, in all honesty, is really not the end of the world, but if I don't need to, typically I will start at that 100 ISO range. That is the native ISO, that's the native sensitivity of all the cameras that you guys are shooting with. So in many ways, it's the best starting point. It's the place to be. Some people would say, well, 50 would make that even better. It isn't. 50 is a special setting on most cameras, and it will do as much damage. It'll actually do more damage at 50 than you will be at 1200 or at 1600 or whatever. I'm shooting an ISO 50 is an abortion. Are there questions on any of this? Good job, guys. I'll see you at 1. And I'm gonna lock the room so you can, if you want to leave stuff, you can. Okay. Yes, I will. Yes. Yes, you will. Yeah.